Greetings. My name is William Keepin, and what I'd like to show you today is a graphic illustration of the union of the soul with God across the religions. Now what we have here is a schematic in which this central spiral here that you can see with my cursor, I'm showing it here, represents God or the divine source or Allah or Brahman or the Tao or ultimate reality, whatever name we give to it. And this is the infinite, ineffable source of all of existence. And then out of this source, we see these different structures all around. So here on the right, we have this one set of structures. We can think of that as Hinduism. That's the Hindu religion, for example. And then down here at the bottom, we have another different looking structure. And we could think of that as, say, Christianity. And then coming around up to the top on the left here, this round structure, we could think of that as Islam, for example. So we have these different religions, each of which has come from this divine source. Now, we all know that God is a living, dynamic spirit, so we can represent that here by activating these rotating colors. And now you see that brings things to life in a sense, and we see this kind of unitive dynamism across the whole spectrum here. Now, it's been said by the mystics across the traditions that the inner essence of the human being is in some sense identical with the Godhead or with God. Now, what does this mean? So let's take an example here. Let's coming over here to the Hindu tradition here on the right, and we have these different sects. Each of these tiny little specks and dots represents a single human being. So we have these millions of Hindus represented here, and we'll just take one right here, one tiny little, if you can see the cursor right here, I'm going to zoom in on this person, and we're going to go in and see what is have a close look at this person. What is their true essence? And as we zoom in, look what we find. The interiority of this human being is none other than the same as the divine essence, the source itself, replicated on a much smaller scale here, but the process is the same. And this is quite remarkable. So as we zoom back out here, we can see what is meant. In Hinduism, they say that Atman is Brahman. Atman is the soul of the individual, which we just saw. Brahman is the essence of the Godhead. And the claim in Hinduism is that Atman is Brahman. And we can see what that means here because we just saw that identity of that one particular person with the divine itself here. Now let's take a look now in Christianity. So we're coming down here to the bottom here, and we have all these different Christians, and here is a tiny little speck named Jesus, and Jesus proclaims, "I and the Father are one." So let's go and have a look at what Jesus might mean by that. So we're zooming in here into Jesus, and sure enough, look what we find. As we come into the interiority of Jesus, we see that in fact this divine process, this essence of the Godhead is exactly replicated in Jesus. And notice that if we keep going inside, we can keep going deeper and deeper, and it's just infinite. So we see that the full infinity of the Godhead is contained in the depths of Jesus. Now, as we zoom out here, we can also understand another thing that Jesus said, because he did proclaim his oneness with the Father, with God, but Jesus also said that God is greater than I, the Father is greater than I, and we begin to see what he meant there, because as we come back out, we can see that Jesus is this little speck, whereas God is this huge vastness. And so we can see how both are true. And finally, if we now come up on the left here to Islam, and here we have the great Sufi saint Al-Hallaj, who proclaimed, Ana al-Haq, I am the supreme reality, I am God. And for this, he was treated the same way Jesus was. He was executed publicly in Baghdad because those around him could not possibly understand this as anything other than blasphemy. because he was just one little speck among all these people, just like they were. And if we zoom in on Al-Hallaj and see who is this man who's proclaiming oneness with the supreme reality, and what we find when we go into the interiority of him is, sure enough, he is one. He spoke the truth. His interior essence is one with the dynamic essence of the Godhead itself. So what do we learn from this? What we see is that the religions have these different outer structures, different shapes, different theologies, different beliefs, and that gives rise to these different appearances of the different religions. But inwardly, the actual realization of the mystics across the religions is that each of them has this identity with the divine essence itself. Now, this turns out that this is not true only for the mystics. It's actually true for every human being, even though we're not normally aware of it. So if we pick any particular person here, let's say that we take this person right here, we zoom in on this person. Who are they in their interiority? And what we find is, sure enough, this person is also, their inmost essence is one with the divine essence. And again, it's infinitely deep. As we keep going, it just keeps going. So the infinity of God is somehow contained within the finiteness of the human being. This is the great gift of the mystics across the world religions. And what we see here is that although the religions themselves have these different structures, the actual essence of God is identical in the inner essence of every human being across all of the religions and all the cultures of the world. And this is the great gift of the mystic tradition. Thank you for watching.